Hello, my name's Jamie Ferguson and welcome to Sunday Songwriter.
Sunday Songwriter.
So, if you're new to this channel, let me give you a quick introduction. Each week I'll be posting a video of a live version of a song that I've either written or covered. I'm going to be covering a different artist each week and then trying to write a song in the style of that artist, taking on board their chord progressions, technique, playing style, and going into how I've done it all from a songwriter's perspective. So, without further ado, let's get started. My first week's artist is John Martyn. So, who is John Martyn? John Martyn is a British folk artist from Surrey. He released 22 studio albums from 1967 until just before his death in 2009. He still has a cult following to this day, and his style is said to have blurred the lines between folk, rock, and jazz music. I'm an avid supporter of open mics, and I also play a lot of open mics in the Manchester music scene myself, and John Martyn is a name that comes up a lot, certainly in this city. He has certainly inspired a lot of people that I know. John Martyn's most well-known album, Solid Air, was released in 1973 and was certainly an album that changed my life. Songwriting, production, and amalgamation of styles was just so ahead of its time. The title song, Solid Air, was actually inspired by Nick Drake, who was good friends with John Martyn. Nick Drake sadly passed away from an antidepressants overdose 18 months after the album was released. I think John took a lot of inspiration from Nick Drake's songwriting, playing, and also his voice, even though the resulting sound was pretty unique and John had his own thing going. The song I decided to cover from this album was May You Never. I think the song is just so beautiful, and every time I hear it, it's just so comforting. Here's a little snippet of my cover of May You Never. Feel free to check out the full video.
May I never lay your head down without a hand to hold. May you never make me get bit out in the cold.
Every performance John does of this song just seems so personal, and it really does feel like the song's just for you. In my opinion, it's John's best song. I also was sure to listen to as much of his discography as I could, just so I could get it right for this video. I enjoyed every second of it, of course. I decided to record the cover with pretty dead strings, which means I hadn't changed them in a long time. This is what Nick Drake did, and I'm sure John did on a lot of his live performances. He wasn't known to change strings before performances, and the result was a lot of the brightness had gone from the sound. This resulted in a lot of the warmth still being there, but it had this kind of haziness to it that was kind of cool. The strings that I use are D'Addario Phosphor Bronze 13. I think John Martyn as well as Nick Drake actually used nickel bronze, which was a slightly different sound. Both did use thick strings as far as I'm aware. The key I recorded the cover in was F major. This isn't the original key. The original key is E major, but F just seems to suit my voice more. He does do a few live versions in the key of F. I'm pretty sure that the whistle test version was in F. I also tuned everything down half a step. I feel like having the capo in fret 4 instead of 2 resulted in a shorter scale length, which got me closer to a sound that John would have got from his Martyn. For my original song River, I took the capo down to fret 2 with the same tuning. This meant the key of the song was in E flat. The guitar I used for the recording was a Loudon 023, which is very different to Martyn and Guild. Loudons are fine guitars, but they're known for having extremely heavy bass overtones and bell-like mids that are kind of chimey. Martyns are completely different. John was known for using Martyns and Guilds. I feel like the tonal qualities of a Loudon are more like a piano or a cello than a guitar, if that makes any sense at all. I have a pretty great pickup system in my guitar by K&K. However, my audio interface only allows for 2 inputs, so I had to use one mic for my vocals and one mic for my guitar. The mic I'm using for my guitar is an AKG 214C. The mic I'm using for my voice is an SM58, which isn't ideal, but it doesn't get a lot of guitar bleed, which is really good because I could somewhat isolate the vocals when mixing. John's style of guitar playing was really different. Instead of strumming chords, he fingerpicked them with a really broken down style and used alternate tunings. Here's a simple way you could play the chord progression in May You Never that doesn't use any of the finger picking or thumb slapping that John used for percussion. This is the way that John played it on the live versions and on the recorded versions. So although those two examples I just showed were the same chords, they sounded completely different. And the way that he fingerpicks means that the chords are broken down into a melody that accompanies the vocals. John's style of playing was also very percussive. He did this by slapping his thumb on the lower E string to give a snare-like sound. I also noticed that John uses hammer-ons to accent notes on the bottom two strings when his thumb is preoccupied by doing the percussion. This is a very effective way of playing and makes him sound very unique. I tried to incorporate this playing style into my original song River. Here's a little snippet of my original song River in the style of John Martyn. I'll also leave a link on screen so you can watch the full version.
I've been floating down the river, trying to find you on my boat. And though I may be treading water, I think my feet can touch the floor.
The initial idea for the song was for it to be a pretty stripped back acoustic live set. When it came to the mixing process, I did however fancy adding some tape delay, as John would use the Echoplex live in certain performances of songs. I know he didn't do this in the song May You Never, but I still thought it sounded good on my original song River, so decided to use it on that. John was one of the first people to use the Echoplex on an acoustic guitar. As well as the Echoplex, John used the Russian Big Muff fuzz pedal in his live setup, as well as some Fender amps. This was really groundbreaking for the time. Here are some photos of John's gear, courtesy of johnmartyn.com. John's lyricism and songwriting is very different to that of a conventional pop singer-songwriter. Instead of having anthem-like choruses, he focuses on subtlety and storytelling and interpersonal relationships. He is an experimental folk artist at heart, so you don't really expect those kind of poppy choruses, although they're extremely catchy and melodic nonetheless. I'm not taking away from pop music, of course. My favourite band is the Beatles, and I think their older stuff is a bit cheesy, but I still love it. Bearing this in mind, I tried to write a song that just had more of a steady and calm vibe throughout the whole thing, rather than just the expectation of one big poppy chorus. I think it's got more of a flowing feel, and I guess that's why it's called River. It kind of just reminds me of all the things that I like about John Martyn. Now, I'm not lucky enough to own an actual Echoplex, and they're pretty expensive, so I had to just use a tape delay on Logic. I think I got a pretty decent emulation of a tape machine. I didn't really need to do too much other than just take some of the top end off. For me, one of the big differences between tape delay and digital delay is that tape delay takes some of the top end off. I also set the BPM of the delay to slightly off what I was playing. I think this made it feel more free and natural. This is how John would have made it sound on live performances anyway. John was known for playing his songs differently every time he played them live. He really was a creative genius like that. He'd often change the melody, lyrics, or arrangement of a song and worked with musicians that were just so good they could keep up with him. Kind of like Jimi Hendrix, but in his own way. It's probably worth mentioning that I think some of John's best live performances were with Danny Thompson, who's definitely worth checking out. He's an incredible musician. I tried to sing in a similar type of voice to John for the cover and my original tune. I was limited with my range in that voice, but I think I got enough out of it. John's voice was just as unique as his guitar playing. It was extremely rich. I think one of the great things about his voice is his diction is kind of off. I mean, a lot of the time you can't really understand what he's saying, but that kind of makes it cool. It's just really slurred, and he kind of just picks a vowel and goes with it and just makes it stretch out as long as possible. I think I got kind of close in the cover, and the original I tried to use the same voice. I tried to keep the subject matter of the lyrics to a pretty interpersonal relationship kind of thing. Pretty common in folk music. John wasn't really known for being a really political lyricist, more of a people watcher and just speaking of his own experiences, so I tried to incorporate this into my tune. John was known for recording and playing live with acrylic nails. I'm pretty sure he used one for his thumb and one for his index finger. I usually have 4 of my nails done, but unfortunately, since this whole COVID thing, I've not been able to get them done. Acrylic nails are a great way to improve note clarity and loudness. It really does give you a dynamic edge that your natural fingers can't give you. For this recording, I just use my natural nails, which aren't really that long. They tend to get pretty worn down from just playing so much. I hope you had as much fun watching this video as I did making it. Be sure to check out my cover of May You Never and my original song River. Let me know what you think. I tried to incorporate all the things that I learned from John Martyn into this tune. Please let me know if there's anyone that you'd like me to cover next. Here are links to all my social media. I'm also on Spotify, so be sure to listen to my music if you enjoyed it. So thank you, and until next time, goodbye.